The Joe Rogan Experience.
That's the other thing that Bob said that I thought was really fascinating, was that there was some documentation that they were showing him that claimed that we are the product of accelerated evolution.
He was shown a lot of shit, and he doesn't like talking about it because he doesn't know if it's just total fucking nonsense.
Right.
You know, he is sure that they showed him shit just to see if he'd fucking say crazy shit.
Right, to see if he'd talk.
All he cares about is what he saw, what he knows is real. But if you do just talk with him privately, they did show him, you know, a photograph of an autopsy of a being with a singular organ. They told him that, yeah, the human genome had been altered, you know, just all sorts of crazy shit. And he just has no idea if it's true or if it's...
God, the whole thing is it's so wild. I just wish, you know, if Bob's lying, my God, what a great liar. Yeah. He's amazing at it.
Right.
And he's been telling the same lie for 30 plus years. And then there's elements of it that, how would he know that? Like, how would he know about element 115? I mean, element 115, when he was talking about it, was theoretical.
Yeah, he got lucky. He's the luckiest guy I know. He always chooses shit that ends up being fucking right.
I know.
You know, that's gravity, funny. Waves, and like, you know, how these crap like, look, man.
Explain the element 115 to people, because people who don't know what we're talking about, that haven't seen the documentary or haven't seen the podcast we did together.
So the way Bob understood it was that he was working on power and propulsion, right? So of one of these, we call them flying saucers, you know, fucking alien vehicle.
That looked like this one.
Exactly.
Right here, from Design by Perry.
Yeah.
The one on the desk.
You know, even like aerospace people are like, well, if you know, it's the most ingenious thing is the way he described it, powered. You know, people are like, impressed by it. I'm like, maybe that's just what he saw. But anyway, so the 115 was the power source, he said. And basically, you know, you put it in and it releases antimatter and creates a gravity propulsion, a gravitational field. And then you had three directional emitters. Look, that's how they think these things operate. Traveling faster than the speed of sound with no sonic boom, all, you know, transmedium, all domain. These things seem to defy typical propulsion. It's not outside of the realm of what we understand. It's outside of the realm of what we can replicate now. One day we might catch up.
And this element 115 that Bob talked about powering this spaceship was only theoretical back in the late 1980s when he first started discussing it.
Right. We hadn't synthesized it yet.
Right. Well, it wasn't a synthesizing. It was created by a particle accelerator, right?
Exactly.
It was detected because it was. I think it was.
But we smashed.
Right.
So we kind of synthesized in that we smashed particles together, and then we're like, oh, for like a second, there it was.
Yeah, I think it's a fraction of a second.
Yeah, and Bob always said that if he's right, if it was 115, that's how he understood it to be. If he's right, then we will someday, you know, be able to make a nominal amount of it that will be stable. That's you know what he says. You got another one of those?
Yeah, you want one?
Yeah, I'll try one.
All right, here we go.
Thanks, man.
Nice. Yeah, the whole thing is just so interesting, man. It never ends.
Yeah, it never ends. It is interesting. I just like...
Until something actually happens, and my thought is like, when something actually happens, how will people handle it? UFO whistleblower could get immunity under new amendment. So this is what you were talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the thing is I know some of the people doing this, and they're like, you know, they want some nominations, man. You know, who should talk to them? Well, you got your own fucking logo there.
You get them, buddy.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, these are Foundation Cigar, JRE cigars. They're good. Shout out to my friend Nick from Foundation Cigars, too. Hooked me up with that cabinet. Got a full humidor up in this bitch now.
Wow. Thank you.
So this element 115.
Yeah.
This is proven by a particle accelerator, and Bob Lazar's claim was that they had a stable amount of this element 115 that had come from this other place. And did they know where this other place was, where this element 115 supposedly had come from? What, another planet?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is like what he was told, so he's kind of allergic to. But you know, he said that the documents said Zeta Reticuli, like I guess a binary star system or something. That's what were in the documents. Now, if that's true or not, look, remember, he thought it was the U.S. He thought this vehicle was ours.
Right.
And then he until he walked inside of it. That's his whole thing. It blew him away. You know, it's hard to buy what someone like Bob is telling you if you don't know the person. You see people in their lives, man.
Like, imagine being him and that actually happening to you, and then you having to go back to reality.
Right.
And tell people or not tell people, just live your life and have the burden of this information, the burden of this thought. Just turn upside down the other way. There you go. Flip the top.
I got to flip the top.
There you go. And then pull
Thank you,
down.
brother.
I mean, the burden of that kind of information, when even discussing it, you seem like such a psycho. You know?
Yeah.
Most people almost instantaneously, other than a real journalist like George Knapp, most people are going to think you're out of your fucking mind.
Yeah. They just dismiss you.
Yeah.
Why would you even do it? Like, what would be your motivation? What would you get out of that?
Well, his motivation was he was seriously worried that they were going to take him out.
Yeah.
Because he knew so much, and they had cut off of his... For folks who don't know the whole story, just give you a brief synopsis. What happened was Bob, allegedly, was working on back engineering these aircrafts, these vehicles, these spaceships. And in doing so, you have to have a very high level of clearance. Well, with that high level of clearance comes complete government surveillance. So they monitor your phone calls, monitor everything. Turns out Bob's wife was having an affair. So they don't tell Bob that his wife's having an affair, but they cut off his job. They're like, you did too much of a potential to be emotionally unstable. We can't have you working on these top secret, super sensitive things.
Yeah, it's logical.
While your life is probably going to fall
find out
apart.
some bad shit. Yeah.
So he doesn't know this. And so they don't give him any information, so he freaks out. And so he starts telling his friends. And he's like, come with me, I'll show you the launch, I'm not lying.
People forget that.
Yes.
He went out and he showed people a craft that didn't look like any normal craft come up right when he said it would.
Yeah.
Over a base that wasn't even known then really well. And a sub-base, an area, not Area 51 proper. He's the luckiest motherfucker in the world. He did it 3 weekends in a row till he got caught.
Right.
So it's just like, man, every time you try to call bullshit on him, I tried so hard on so many things, motherfucker. People think I'm just some fucking believer. I'm not, bro.
The only thing that people have ever called bullshit on him is that he said he might have seen an actual alien. But he said he was walking down a hallway and looked through one of those little tiny windows that's in a door, you know, those little tiny, like 12-inch square windows, and he peered in it quickly as he was walking by, and it seemed like there was a small thing that was sitting on a chair, and there's people standing over it. But he doesn't know if it was a doll. He doesn't know if it was, and so in his mind, he's like, fuck, did I see an alien? Like, what the fuck? But he can't go back. It's not, like, everything's, if you work on top secret stuff, apparently, everything's very compartmentalized. Like the people that work on metallurgy don't have access to the people that work on propulsion, that don't have access to the people that, if there is a biological entity, that they examine it.
Which frustrated the fuck out of him, right?
Because he said that's not how you do science.
It's not how you do science.
Right. You have
and
to collaborate.
He says, I wasn't the most qualified person to be there. Maybe
Right.
they hired me because they could easily dismiss me. You know, he's like, why didn't we have better people on this? You know, people that were more... So he was really frustrated. And he said to me, like, he thought it was a crime against the scientific community. You know, if they have this stuff, like he says, you know, he says it was a crime. And, you know, he talks about that thing through the window. He's so funny about it. You know, I sat him down for long, you know, many sessions, long, really trying to get it out of him.
Yeah.
He goes, you know, Jeremy, I think they were just obsessed with measurements. I go, what do you mean? And he's like, well, look, there was something in a chair, but it was small. Maybe they were trying to just measure it to see if it would fit in a craft. So that's how he kind of gets around, like, did he see something or not? He doesn't know.
Like it could have been a doll that they
That's
constructed that was roughly the same height as these things were.
He just doesn't want to go there, right?
And so these creatures that were in this vehicle, if there were creatures in this vehicle,
there were 3 seats.
Yeah, and he estimated they had to be how big?
Your typical, like what you think of as like a little gray alien, man, 3-4 feet.
Right.
He said they look like they were made for children.
The seats.
Yeah, and so look, and every time I try to be like dismiss Bob myself, there's something that creeps in my mind. I'm like, hold on. Like I find out that he was telling the truth. Like recently, I had it verified that he did work at Area 51. Like I know I had a guy. I found the guy after 30 years that he wouldn't talk with George, the guy that did his security clearance. I found him. I talked to him multiple times about this, and he did clearance for Bob for the test site. But even more recently, from people that have position to access that information, it was confirmed. I just want you to know, he worked out there. Now, I have people that were out there that saw him on a Janet flight. Bob worked out there.
And a Janet flight is those unmarked planes that would leave from the Vegas airport and head into Area 51.
That's right. And so here's the deal, man. Like, it's the cumulative evidence about Bob that I, as a friend of his, like I have no reason to doubt him. And all the evidence tells me that it happened exactly like he said. And he's explaining it to the best of his ability. And to his own detriment, actually, before coming on your show, man, he's probably the most hated dude. For some reason, people go crazy about him. They either love him or hate him.
Well, I think your documentary turned a lot of people's opinions about him as well.
Thank you, brother.
But then having him on, I mean, some people still call bullshit. They think like his migraines were convenient.
Oh, come on. You saw
But he was having them. He was having him in the green room before we started going on. He was very nervous about doing it.
Of course, man. He'd been beat up his whole life about this shit. Also, I gave him McDonald's before, and I think his wife was super pissed at me, and I was like, you give him a salad. No, he gets really, like, crushing migraines, but, people that are going to call bullshit on that, we're talking about fucking UFOs. If you're going to call bullshit on a migraine, what are you even listening for?
I didn't feel like it was bullshit.
It wasn't
I felt
bullshit.
like the whole thing was uncomfortable for him, for sure. But it didn't seem like he was lying. But, look, there's some people that are really good at liars. But usually when you're really good at lying, you lie about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's a consistency in people's lives. And the deeper I got in, chilling with his mom, chilling with his family, chilling with friends that have known him forever, new friends, every single person. And he doesn't talk to them about UFOs, by the way. Like all that. He never talks about that. Just normal life situations.
Right.
The one thing they all said to me, Bob wouldn't waste his fucking time with making up a story, and he'd probably make up a better one. That in the rest, he would. And Bob always says that. He goes, "Man, I wish I could fill the voids for people." He goes, "It's a horrible fucking story," but he goes, "It happens to be what happened."
Right.
If I was making one up, he goes, "Man, I got some other cool ideas." Like, you know what I mean?
Right. Of course. And also, it's like if you're a liar, you generally lie a lot. Like liars don't just lie one time in their life, and then you catch them. They're inconsistent. Like he was lying long before there was an internet. I mean, excuse me, he was telling the story long before there was an internet. So if he was lying, like in the late '80s, like there would be inconsistencies in his story. Like he would forget how he said it. He would fuck something up, or
dude, for the research I did for the documentary, like I told him, you got to give me full access to your life, dude. Like boxes, whatever. Don't open them. Let me get all your tapes, everything. Right. I was so shocked. Like people, if they're trying to hide something, they're real careful around you. Just that was not my experience. But here's my other thing: is like, do we have to believe any one single person to understand that this is
no?
Yeah, this is a real phenomenon.
No, but he's one of the more interesting cases because if he's telling the truth, that means that the government has been working on these things for decades and decades, and that they have gotten themselves in this pickle where they can't publicly disclose what they know and what they have access to because they've had all these people work on these things secretly, and they sort of have a long history of hiding information.
Right.